Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Well, it happened. The New Orleans Saints did something that they have never done in the history of their organization. The New Orleans Saints selected a quarterback in the second round. Now, that in and of itself shouldn't sound amazing because lots of teams select quarterbacks in the second round, but the Saints have this very, what I would think is a dubious distinction, that they've only selected a quarterback in round one once in their history. The next highest drafted quarterback was Garrett Grayson in round 3 a decade ago. From Archie Manning to Garrett Grayson, from Archie Manning until Tyler Shough, you never drafted a quarterback higher than the third round. You wonder why this organization, for large parts of its history, has been an incompetent laughingstock. Hard to win without a great quarterback. The Saints never invest in great quarterbacks. So, if you're not going to invest in trying to get a great quarterback, it's hard to assume that Jim Everett and Jeff Blake and Aaron Brooks and Derek Carr are going to be that. You needed a quarterback. You took one. I know there's a lot of people who don't love this because there's questions about Tyler Shough, but there's questions about every quarterback. And the odds are you are not going to draft a Hall of Fame quarterback in round 2. That's just the odds. That's not a commentary on Tyler Shough. It's just the odds are it ain't going to go well. But it could. And you can't participate in the upside if you're not willing to make the investment on the front end. Derek Carr is injured. You had to get a quarterback. You got a quarterback. I will also say the New Orleans Saints did their due diligence here. We heard all the reports last week. They tried to move back from 9. They tried to move up from 40. Couldn't get a deal done. None of us are privy to how those conversations go in the draft room. The Giants got it done. The Giants moved up from the beginning of round 2, back into round 1, and took Jackson Dart. Presumably, that was the guy the Saints wanted. They wanted to move back from 9 or up from 40 to take Jackson Dart. Saints didn't get a deal done. The Giants did. Okay. So what next? You're there picking at 40. Tyler Shough's on the board. You have a good grade on him, so you take him. Here was Kellen Moore after the draft on Tyler Shough, the Saints' second-round pick.
You know, we're really, really excited about the opportunity to get Tyler. 32 starts. He faced a lot of adversity through his career, battled through, obviously, multiple unfortunate injuries that kind of took him through a navigating process. But, as we went through this process, just the more touching points we had with Tyler, the more impressed we got. He was a guy who went through this whole process. I think it's unique when you have a guy who went through the Senior Bowl, did the whole entire combine, went through the visits. Scott went out there and saw him at Louisville. We had a 30 visit with him. Every interaction just, really enforced, the player that he was. And so as you go through this QB process, obviously never easy decisions with that. Just felt like he was a really good quarterback. He was ready. He's prepared. Obviously, he's been through a lot in a good way, and so he's ready to compete in our quarterback room as it plays itself out.
Senior Bowl, Louisville, Pro Day, top 30. Y'all, they did their due diligence. They didn't take a flyer on a guy just because. They got to know him really well. Shough, by the way, had his post-draft media availability, and he elaborated on the pre-draft process with the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, so Coach Tolzien came to my pro day, and we did a really extensive, board work. Went to go get lunch and dinner. We spent about the whole day together before pro day, and we connected really well. He watched pro day, obviously, so he got to see me work out. And then, shortly after then, I came in for a 30 visit and got to meet everybody, and it just had a great experience, man. The facilities there, the coaching, I met all day with them, and they had great feedback, great support. But yeah, I really hadn't heard from him. Hadn't heard from him since then, and I was talking to my boy Ziad right after, and it was just like, man, I hope it works out as I was leaving at the airport, and luckily it worked out.
So, all of this, from Tolzien meeting with him, the top 30, the Saints very clearly did their due diligence on this player. He was there at 40, they liked him, they picked him. They wrote his name on the card and turned it in. Okay. One of the things that I'll push back on a little bit of the criticism, and by the way, I'm not wholly endorsing this. I'm going to get to that in a second. But I will push back on the criticism of people that say, who's Tyler Shough? This is nobody, never done nothing. Hold on. It's been a minute, but Tyler Shough was hardly a nobody. Okay? When he was coming out of high school, he was the number 94 prospect in the country. So he was a top 100 prospect. He was the number 6 pro-style quarterback in America. That's when they still split him up pro-style and dual threat. It's been that long. To illustrate how long it's been, his freshman year at Oregon was 2018. That was Joe Burrow's first year in Baton Rouge. It's been a minute, okay? But he had offers from Oregon and Bama and Georgia and Michigan and Florida State and Nebraska. Like, he was a big-time prospect. He's a big dude with a big arm. And those are, if you're doing pros and cons, right? Draw the line down the middle, pros, cons. His size, his arm strength, and his maturity. He's 25 years old. He's married. Going to be 26 by the time the season starts. He'll turn 26 in September. So there is a level of maturity there for a guy coming in that you don't really have to worry about like you would with some younger prospects. We just played a prank call from a 21-year-old who prank called Shedeur Sanders. There's a lot of 21-year-olds that just became millionaires on Thursday and Friday. You don't have to worry about that with him. Now, the age could also go in the cons list. Age and durability. Those are the two things you hear most commonly. He'll be 26 when the season starts. Longevity is going to be a question because typically you'd have a rookie, 21, 22 years old, rookie deal, 4 years. By the time they're 25, 26, they're getting their second contract. Well, Tyler Shough's already 26. So you may not have 15 years with him if it works out. But I don't think you're thinking in those terms. I mean, I'll remind you, Drew Brees signed with New Orleans as a 27-year-old. Yes, he had been in the NFL, but he was a guy who lost his job. The organization that drafted him moved on from him, decided to draft Phillip Rivers, and he had obliterated his shoulder in a horrifying injury, and so much so that Miami passed on him because they couldn't clear him from a physical. He was 27. Worked out. I'm not saying Tyler Shough is Drew Brees. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just drawing a comparison to say someone can come into your organization at 26, 27 years old and still be productive. It's not like you're 46, okay? I think the injury part of it that people highlight, I would be more concerned about the injuries if we were talking about ligament or shoulder injury. Like if he had had an Achilles or an ACL or, God forbid, a shoulder. Like that would be way more concerning for a quarterback. He broke his collarbone twice and he broke his leg. Like, it's a physical game. Sometimes that happens. And oh, by the way, in the NFL, they go to great lengths to make sure that defensive linemen aren't falling on quarterbacks to break their collarbones after what happened to Aaron Rodgers. So I'm a little less concerned about that component of it. The question that I have that all of you have is, okay, but is he the guy? And I don't know. I do not know the answer to that question. The odds tell you he is not going to be the guy. The odds tell you it's not going to work. I went back and looked at every second-round quarterback going back to 2013. There aren't that many of them, by the way, because most quarterbacks that are elite go in the first round. And then you have that sort of middle tier that start coming around in rounds like 3 through 5, the middle rounds. Generally, if you're a quarterback good enough to go in round 2, you're probably going in round 1. But here's your list. This is the list of quarterbacks that have been taken in round 2 all the way back to 2013. Will Levis? Nope. Kyle Trask? Nope. Jalen Hurts? That's a hit. Guy won a Super Bowl. Drew Lock? Lower level starter in the league. DeShone Kizer. Is DeShone Kizer still playing? in the NFL? Can you look that up for me? I have no idea if DeShone Kizer is even still in the league. Christian Hackenberg. Nope. Derek Carr. Although guys walking away with a $100 million guarantee from the Saints. Jimmy Garoppolo, starting quarterback in the NFL, led the Niners to a Super Bowl. Geno Smith, starting quarterback in the NFL. So what you have is a series of busts and low-level starters in the NFL. You got one super outlier, which is Jalen Hurts, who's awesome, right?
DeShone Kizer has not been in the league since 2018. He played 2 seasons.
Let's go ahead and assume that DeShone Kizer was a bust. That was a miss, okay? Let's go ahead and say that. Maybe you drafted Jalen Hurts. Not stylistically, I get it. But maybe you drafted the guy that's going to go win a Super Bowl, or maybe you just drafted Christian Hackenberg. Or maybe you drafted Drew Lock. A guy that'll be a starter. Not a great starter, but a starter. Maybe a really good backup or a low-level starter. See what it is. That's probably what you just did. But what I know is you cannot win without an elite quarterback. You cannot do it. You cannot win in the NFL without an elite quarterback. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Like, you're not winning without one of those guys. Joe Burrow. How do you get one of those guys? You draft them. What if you miss? Tough. Draft another one. We all agree the Washington Commanders are in a pretty good spot right now. Yeah, with Jaden Daniels? Washington has drafted 6 quarterbacks in the first round dating back to 1994. They do it about every 5 years. Jaden Daniels in 24, the late Dwayne Haskins in 2019, RG3 in 2012, Jason Campbell in 2005, Patrick Ramsey 3 years before that in 2002, Heath Schuler in 1994. They keep going to the well because you can't win without one. Stop pretending like you can. Now, in that interim, they also drafted Kirk Cousins in round 5, and they got a good starting quarterback. Not one that was going to be elite and get them where they wanted to go, so ultimately he moved on to Minnesota, as we know how that went. But they keep going to the well until they find their Jaden Daniels, because without him, you're not winning. So what do you want to be? Do you want to be a team that competes for Super Bowls, or do you want to be a team in the perpetual 7-10 win? Maybe you make the playoffs every now and again, but you're one and done, mostly drafted in this perpetual state of mediocrity where the Saints have existed for most of their existence. What do you want to be? I want to be a Super Bowl team. I want to be a contender. And I know you're not going to be that without a quarterback, so you got to keep drafting them. Otherwise, you're going to pay Derek Carr $100 million. And you're going to hitch your wagon to Aaron Brooks and Jeff Blake and Jim Everett. Like, that has been this organization's history. They don't draft quarterbacks. They try to get young veteran free agents and hope they hit on. It worked with Breeze. It's worked once, and it worked beautifully. And it's the greatest era this organization ever had. But everything outside of that is a disaster. It took you over 30 years to win a playoff game. It took you 20 years to make the playoffs. So I am excited that they took a quarterback in round 2. I can't tell you I'm super pumped about 25-year-old Tyler Shough, who battled injuries and was a full-time starter 1 season. Now, he was a full-time starter 1 season because of his injuries. And I'm not super worried about those injuries because, as I mentioned, broken collarbone, broken leg, that happens in a physical game, and it's less likely to happen in the NFL because of how they protect quarterbacks. I mean, Tyler Shough was still playing in college when jacked up was a thing. Okay, probably not really, but maybe. Does Tyler Shough have NFL traits? The size, the arm, all that? Yes, he does. Does the New Orleans Saints coaching staff think they can win with him? Yes, they do. They did their due diligence. It's why they wrote his name on the card. So you take him. And maybe it's Christian Hackenberg. And maybe it's Will Levis. And maybe it's DeShone Kizer. Or maybe it's Jimmy G. Or maybe it's Drew Lock. Or maybe it's Jalen Hurts. But you don't know until you write the name on the card, make the commissioner or whoever reads the card in the second round. I think it was Ryan Ramchick. Make them read the name, bring him in, and see what you got. It's the beauty of the draft. Hope springs eternal. Maybe you just drafted a Hall of Famer. Maybe you drafted a guy that's going to be a backup for two years and out the league like DeShone Kizer. But you won't know until you do it. And except for one time in their history, they have never done this at this level, meaning taking a quarterback this high in the draft. So I'm glad I'm glad they took their shot. Now let's see if it works. And oh, by the way, taking Tyler Shough this year does not preclude you from taking a quarterback next year. If he comes in and stinks and you go 2-15 and you got the first pick of the draft next year, take it on the best quarterback in the draft. Get your guy next year. 3 years in a row now you've taken a quarterback. Keep feeding the slot machine until you hit the jackpot. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.